when I thought about who I wanted to talk to, you were one of the people that just rose straight to the top of the list. So, okay, let's talk about Natalie. Natalie is a Bafta-winning commissioning editor. I'm going to read out some credits for the audience. So, production credits: X Factor, The Voice, The Jump, The Only Way Is Essex, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, Gogglebox, Big Brother, Celebrity Big Brother, Geordie Shore. The list goes on. All right. Okay, so we got some commissioning credits. We've got The Jonathan Ross Show, The Voice, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Big Zoo's Breakfast Show, Big Zoo's 12 Dishes into. I mean, look, we could keep going, and people listening will recognize a lot of those shows. So, what does it mean? What does it take to make great TV?
For me, the first thing is that you have to remember that all of us, we're all viewers. So, as a viewer, I always go back to that. As a viewer, as the audience, when I'm sitting down on my sofa and I've got the remote and I'm looking for what to watch, I'm not just looking for, it's not a shopping list for me, it's emotional. It's how do I want to feel? Then what is the content that is going to make me feel that way? And where do I want to spend most of my time? Do I want to feel relaxed? Do I want to feel renewed? Do I want to feel euphoric? Do I want to feel optimistic before I go to bed? Do I want to feel as challenged? And most of the time, I think audiences, viewers, we want to feel like we're understood.
Say more.
As in, the shows that in the unscripted space, I suppose, because I work in unscripted, that really resonate are the ones that remind the viewer that we are all a part of something together.
And unscripted, by the way, just for people who don't know, unscripted is, how would you define unscripted?
Anything that isn't a drama, that's that has a script to it, that's fictional. This unscripted is what's based in the real world. Yeah.
And so I loved what you were saying. You're talking about emotions and the experience and the feelings of it all. Is there a show that you can speak to that just brings that to life? That piece of people feeling like they're part of something.
Yeah, there were so many shows. I mean, look, you could. First Dates, for example. Let's just take a dating show that has done very well, because if you remember when it first started, we, as the viewer, you felt that you were privy to something, a very intimate space that you maybe shouldn't be or wouldn't have access to, but everything that happened on those dates was everything that you could relate to as a human being. The trepidation, the nervousness, the clamminess. Can I disguise how much I really like this person? All of these things where we're reading people and it's reminding us of ourselves.
What do you think of Love is Blind?
I think that it's fantastic.
Right answer.
It is. But
being someone that works on Netflix.
Well, quite. Kenny, come on, listen, I'm not going to come in here and bash your shows. And you make fantastic shows, let's not lie. But I'm saying those shows do them very well. Gogglebox, the same. We're looking at people who were just like us. I think that's the tether that makes us feel like we're understood. When we see ourselves on screen or people are able to articulate that creatively.
So, but to your point, it's like we're not designing after our own tastes, right?
That's very selfish to do that. And it limits us also, I think. So as a commissioner, when you have the opportunity to commission things, wherever I'm at, my job is to amplify the tone of the channel and make sure that whatever it is that I'm commissioning is appealing to that audience who feel like they are understood.
So to do that, how do you know the audience? Because there's a couple of things here, right? In that one, the audience tastes are shifting. So what audience it loved 2 years ago, we don't even know if they're going to love in 5 years' time. So when you think about the tone of the channel and working backwards from the audience, how do you stay in touch with what the audience wants?
That's a really good question. I think maybe in two parts. The first part, which is how do you understand, is I think most channels, every channel tries at least to have an identity, a brand, so that you understand that when you're going to that place, this is the kind of thing that you can expect to get. Channel 4, edgy, remitted to be, push the envelope, on the frontier of things that are new, things that are thought-provoking. The BBC is different. ITV is different. They have a clear vision. They have real clarity about who they need to serve and why, which is, 9 to 90, broadest audience. Everybody feels like everybody should feel that they can get something from the BBC.
We were talking about how do you understand your audience? And you said one of the ways is, you're thinking about the channel and the kind of brand and the kind of what people have come to expect and the tone. And I think you said there was one more, there was another sort of...
Yeah, so you understand the tone, the identity of that channel. Maybe it's male skewing. Maybe it's very female skewing. Maybe it's very young. Maybe it's 16 to 24s who watch that channel. Maybe it's BBC Three, maybe it's E4. Then immediately you already know, okay, this needs to have a young sensibility. It needs to have that appeal, not just in the content and the subject matter, but how it's executed as well. We're competing with YouTube, the most watched thing right now. All of these other digital spaces, we have to remember that there's a lot of people who will spend 4 hours watching cat and dog videos on their iPhone. It's funny, but that's what everyone else is competing with, I guess, at 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. We really have to break it down to its most basic form.
You're having to compete for eyeballs, right?
You are, and everywhere, attention. Right? Yeah. And so how are we doing that? And then that means the content matters, right? The actual content matters and how you're executing it and why is that somebody will come and spend time with you. Yes. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
That's our challenge as commissioners and producers. That doesn't... Look, there are a lot of fantastic programs out there that never get the eyeballs. That doesn't mean to say that content is not great. Yeah. It's just swimming in a pool now.
There's so much more competition now.
So much more competition.
So for people, Natalie, who, they don't understand a lot about the creative process, particularly in the area of TV and film, help us understand what is it like to get a show from pitch to play when you're watching it on the screen? Take us through that process.
Okay. Well, that process can be quite long. It can be short depending on what it is. If you say, I've got Adele, exclusive, she wants to do something that you haven't done before. It's like, that's quite a short conversation, isn't it? It's more about, do we have enough money to do it? But most things...
it's funny you brought in Adele. I thought you might bring in Taylor Swift, and she's kind of all the rage, right?
That too. Exactly. But for most other things, it's a process. So as a commissioner, you work with lots of producers. They will come and pitch to you all the time. They'll have an understanding most of the time about your brand, about the kinds of things that you do. Okay, you're keen on dating, or, entertainment, shiny floors, your thing, or access docs where, you have privileged access into stuff. That's, you've got an appetite for that. So it starts with the producers coming in, talking to you about some of the ideas that they've got on the boil. Are you interested in any of those? You may be. There may already be some ideas in development, so it might not be the right thing. Or there is something in an idea that you've been pitched that has some real potential, or it's based around some talent who you love. Either thing. So you can go into a period of paid development, which is, okay, we're going to have a nibble. We like this idea. We want to road test it a little bit. We will give you some money to make a pilot. We might give you some money to give us a more detailed idea of what this is. So a document that spans many pages that takes you through, maybe it's a format, section by section. So a commissioner can look at that. You can pitch that to your team and they can understand, okay, this is what it is.
And even in that just initial kind of part of the process, there's a real skill, isn't there, in terms of choosing, right?
Yeah.
You know, because not everybody chooses.
No, you
great
can
shows.
say can say no to the wrong the wrong stuff.
Yeah. Or you can say yes
to the wrong
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
You know, it's there isn't a science to it. That's why my particular approach is, I think intuition is really important as well as understanding where you are.
And the judgment and the courage to say, hey, look, do you know what? This is going to be, and the support from the studio to be able to say, hey, look, this is going to be a bit of a kind of a calculated risk or kind of an informed swing. We don't know for sure, but we want to push the boundaries a bit. And
Exactly that. So the development part of the process might be successful, and there's no other reason why you shouldn't go ahead and commission this show. The format stacks up. The talent is on board. Mm-hmm. Everybody in your team is excited.
The partners that
exactly.
And that's the other thing as well. The track record, right, of the folk who are pitching it. I mean, if you've worked with them before, that's one kind of conversation. But if you've never worked with them before, then that's another kind.
That's another conversation. My in commissioning, I've worked a lot with small producers who haven't really made that much. I like those producers because they're hungry. And it's a different kind of. It's just sometimes it's a different kind of flavour
to your A24s.
Yeah. Not to say it's not a nice experience. It's just more that there's a different level of hunger and appetite and drive sometimes, and so it's collaborative. Then from paid development, it could go straight to a commission. Okay, cool. We've seen that development. We love it. We are so sold on this idea. It's watertight. We want 6 of those, and we want to for it to go out next summer. So we need to get into production nowish. Do you know what I mean? Or it could be some access thing where you have to spend 2 years doing something, and it is a period of filming for months, then leave it for a bit, then filming for months and leave it for a bit, depending on what's going on.
In the part of the process you've just described, where do most of the issues sort of tend to crop up?
In that stage between commissioning the idea and then when you are at the edit and it's all done, the shooting part of it is done and dusted. The banana skins are, whether there is a lack of communication between you and the team, how much trust there is between you and them. Are they going to
really
flag things?
The creative vision? Do they sort of understand what direction?
Yeah, and that's all about talking. Now, I never expect that I'm going to commission a show and then, okay, guys, it's been real. Hit me up when you get to the edit, okay? No. How can you then expect... Do you know what I'm saying? So for me, it's about being plugged in, not micromanaging, but letting them know that you are on hand, having an interest in everything, because I think that's really, really key. So the banana skins, I think, are when there's that lack of communication and you feel like you were agreed and on the same page when you commission the thing. But we get to this point and it's like, wow, this is not what we're adrift here.
And you've been on both sides, so you kind of...
I've been on both sides. I've been on both sides. And so I think that's very, very, very important.
And when you're giving, let's say you're giving notes or you're giving feedback, I can imagine some banana skins there in terms of how people receive it. Particularly if you've got, pretty seasoned execs or producers, who've got a reputation, maybe got an ego. Talk to us a bit about, giving good notes or just feedback and just that part where actually you're trying to push for it in a certain direction or you're trying to give advice and...
Yeah. I think a sensible commissioner understands that the notes that you give have to enhance the show in some way.
Has to be additive,
because if they're not enhancing the show, you can live without it. Just if you work on that metric, then 90% of the time, the notes that you're giving to producers is going to be helpful. They may not necessarily agree with them, But then it becomes, okay, what's best for the show? It might be that, okay, well, let's try it your way then. And then let's have a look. Okay, it's not quite giving. Can we try it the other way? Oh, right, that works. Do we all feel like that is working a little bit better or no? You always reach an agreement. And I think it depends on what people have vested motivations and interests, and it might be someone's friend with some talent, and they're trying to get them on the show. I don't care. Are they good for the show? Or are they not good for the show? What do we think? What do we all think?
And so then, as you get towards the end of the process, it's not done just obviously after the editing. You've also got, once you've released it, it's launched. Talk to us a bit about that stage. I know you're looking at data, you're looking at metrics and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, even at the point where you have finished the show's been delivered, i.e. the physical show has been delivered to the channel when it's ready to play out. There is a whole nother piece that goes on with marketing, with press. How are you going to amplify the show? How will you market it? Are you going to have out-of-home marketing, which is buses, billboards, or is it going to be on screen?
Yeah.
Are you going to take out digital ads when you're going up the escalators? What's the most effective? Or are you going to put a lot of your paid spend behind social media and da-da-da-da-da? There's a whole team of very skilled people whose job it is to then line up with you when you have your show. And their job is to help you to sell that in the best way possible. Press, where can you get in? What interviews can your talent get on? When we were doing 12 Dishes, Zuu was on This Morning, The Last Leg, Wonderland, Guardian, blah, 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 blah. That's all really important as well. Social listening, your social team who are going to be able to tell you what the feedback is when your show is playing out. What do people like? What don't they like? Do they think that the show is on too late? Wow, okay, maybe we should. Or do they think that it could be less of this? Whatever.
And what I'm hearing is there are so many players.
There's so many stakeholders in that one thing that there's a scheduling team, there's PR, there's the legal, there's compliance. Compliance's job is to make sure that you guys don't get sued. So no one's going to say, I never gave you permission to shoot in my restaurant. They're not going to say you didn't get a release form for that and you've used my contribution. They're not going to say, any manner of things. They are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
All these people who you also need to get on side.
When you approach a show, tell us about how you think about it. All the different things that go into it. Take us into Natalie's mind.
When I watch television, I am listening as much as I am the sound. The mix, how it is engineered, the music that is used. In my undergraduate degree, I majored in sound design.
Because, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
There were so many avenues we could go down, so many things you could specialise in, but sound design was the thing. And I often think, wow, I really knew that there was something that I was so interested in that space then. Wow, when I was at uni.
Yeah.
We had to create a soundtrack that told a story that was based on something that was real. Anything that I have had a loose or significant amount of control over in terms of what I'm doing, producing, music is always a huge, huge part of it. Credits, how is a show starting? If anybody has seen American Fiction, I love the credits. Kenny, you have to see that. Jeffrey Wright is unbelievable.
Yeah, I was listening to Jeffrey Wright was on a actor's studio, sort of the one-to-one where they do the interview each other.
Yes, I love those.
It was with Jeffrey Wright and
Taraji P. Henson.
Yes, I think it was both of them. And so I was listening to him talk about how he got cast for American Fiction and all of that.
Yeah.
He's such a... I don't know if he started out in theatre. For those listening, it's Jeffrey Wright, isn't it?
It's Jeffrey Wright.
He did... What's some of the other famous?
He's been in so many fantastic films.
Westworld. He was in Westworld. Did you watch the series Westworld?
He was in Westworld. Yeah. He's been in huge dramas where he's played spies.
Yes.
Like
he's also
assassins.
the voice in Marvel's the What If series. He's the voice of this Observer.
I haven't seen. Is that one of the better ones?
It's animation and it's
okay,
amazing.
Because Marvel's been dropping off. We don't have time. Listen, I'm thinking about cutting my Disney Plus.
Well, enjoying the 1.3 million
I'm thinking about what it's offering me right now.
So
because I'm not into Encanto like
that. We don't talk about Encanto.
Really?
Tell us about when you've got creative differences, right? And you're pushing, you see what something could become, and you feel like maybe those around you, whether it's external folk or in studios or production companies you've worked at, but the people you're working with perhaps don't share that vision. How have you navigated that? Describe what is that like, and how do you influence for a certain direction?
Okay, well, that's also a really good question. I'm going to be really honest with you. Yeah. I haven't been in that position before. And the reason why I haven't been in that position before is because the way that I work is really, really important for us to understand how we're going to collaborate. And from the moment that thing is a germ, we have an open dialogue. We understand. There's no way that the creative vision could suddenly become something that was nothing that resembled where we were in the beginning. Because I am a big fan of that kind of collaboration.
But let me push a little bit on that in terms of, let's say, casting or talent. You know?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
There's always creative differences on that side.
Tell us about that. Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to talent, everything is subjective, isn't it? It's like you either know this person or a fan of this person, like their vibe, or it's not for you. But what is important is that the best decision that we're all making for the show?
Yeah. So you're keeping the show front and center.
It can't be about my personal. Yeah. Again, I think you can see programs where someone has just been let loose with their own imagination. It's been quite indulgent and about them.
Natalie?
No, I would never do that. I would never do that. But because, I think I think that, and the thing with Zuu is a lot of people in the beginning were like, "Wow, you took what a risk. It wasn't, Zuu was never a risk to me. He was never a risk to me. The very moment that I met him, I understood exactly who he was. And I didn't want him to change anything about who he was, how he was delivering his personality and articulating himself and all of that stuff. And I think that's part of his, the part of why people really like him, because I think when you watch television, when you see people who are so comfortable in their own skin and so liberated that they can only be themselves, wow, that's powerful, you know. Do you know who else is like that? Yes. Alison Hammond.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's talk about Alison Hammond. Yeah.
This woman has been Alison Hammond since the beginning. Do you know what I mean?
There may be some people who don't know who, particularly if we've got folks listening from the US or
yes,
different parts of the world.
Alison Hammond is she's kind of a national treasure now. She's a fantastic presenter and host, or she's one of the new a Bake Off hosts. She started off in reality television. She started off as a contestant on Big Brother many years ago. And she's been tenacious and she's been consistent, but the most of all, she has been herself. If you watch old Alison Hammond and you watch new Alison Hammond, you're in the same playground. I just think that is a really, really good sign of somebody who has not bent to the industry's will or what its expectation is of a quote-unquote host or presenter. And she's embraced a part of herself that maybe people were not open to at the beginning or maybe thought was a bit gauche. But then when you see her sitting down with Ryan Gosling and
it was
Harrison Ford.
That
and I don't know what to do but fall about like, you're like, wow.
Yeah,
who else is getting that content?
That was great. That said, right, when you think about, so you said when you first met Big Zuu,
yeah,
you knew what he was about straight away. And that said, not everybody translates to the screen. Not even just the screen. I mean, you've got, let's say, YouTube, music videos, people, maybe they've got a daytime job doing that, and then all of a sudden you see there's some talent where they could be on a show, or whether it's streaming or linear. How did you help him translate into TV on the screen? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I commissioned Big Eats, he'd never done any television before. Hyder and Tubbsy hadn't done. Everything was new. Being on a set was new. Yeah. A TV set, understanding, what a director does, why they're asking you to be there, your mark, pickups, what a pickup is, blah, 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 why you have to do things a million times, blah, blah, blah. With Zuu, it was easy with him because his personality is so unusual. It's very, very rare. A lot of the things that you would spend time trying to get a presenter or a host to relax and pick up and blah, 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 he took to those things very, very naturally. And when I said earlier about I like shows that find their own grammar. Big Eats, that's exactly how we started off intentionally like that, which was he came from social media, TikTok. He came from that world. And so why would we take somebody who was so brilliant and authentic in that space and then try to mold them into what we think our viewers, how they can digest them? Why are we doing that? I think that's a bit patronising because even if this is a viewer who is 55 plus year old viewers have got how many streaming services, are watching their favourite channels on YouTube. They seek out, they are curators of their own content. So I just think we should be much more open-minded when we say, this is what our audience, this is what we want, this is what they want, and this is how they want it. So my point that I'm making is I was slightly more uncompromising in that I wanted Zuu to be authentic and I wanted the show to be authentic and I wanted how we made it to be authentic. The pre-titles, the opening to the show, the first 90 seconds of any show is usually, the job of the pre-titles is to tell you in a minute and a half or a minute what the show is, what to expect, maybe what's coming up. And we decided to shoot that like a music video where Zuu was rapping. Yeah. And stylistically, that was so important because in that first 90 seconds, you understand, wow, this is a rapper who is cooking food with two people who look like they're his really good friends. He's funny and he's combining music, food and comedy. That's it. He's going to be cooking for some of the faces that you know. But even in that was a signpost for this show is going to be different. It's not going to be something that you will have expected from this channel, but it's going to have an invitation to all. Because you're going to see faces that are familiar to you, whether it's Jimmy Carr that Zuu is cooking for, or Rosie Jones, or Judy Love, or Mo Gilligan, or Maya Jama. It's a privilege to be able to commission. And like I say, we can't be selfish commissioners, but we can still deliver things that are new and fresh.
tell me about your thoughts around representation on screen more generally, both, visible representation. So, for example, just with Big Zoo's 12 Dishes, you've got Will Poulter, who I just think is adorable. I think he's great.
He was amazing.
And their dynamic's great. And you've got Eddie Caddy, who we knew growing up as a comedian in London. One of the things that struck me is, these are kind of South London, or if you like, I don't know if Big Zoo's from South London, but that urban London accents that you wouldn't normally hear on, UKTV, not UKTV, as in British TV.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are around representation on screen, both in terms of accents, visible representation, the whole spectrum.
I think that it is, I think it's crucial. I'm a black woman. I'm just all about it. We can't help it. And I think it's reassuring to see, to not just see a homogenous group of people who are very similar, who get the same opportunities, and then it becomes a revolving door of talent that you see on screen. I don't think that serves a society or, the next generation of creatives very well, because they're able to get that elsewhere. So, if we're being competitive, representation is part of that for me. I think...
At the same time, would you, it also has to appeal to, the middle of England or a certain kind of larger...
It does. But did the middle of England not like Bridgerton? Or did they like Bridgerton? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't think that Shonda Rhimes is like, let me just make black shows. She's let me make shows that are going to hit the biggest, broadest number of people.
Absolutely.
It could be Grays. It could be How to Get Away with Murder. It could be Bridgerton. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so I think that her diversity off screen really matters. And look, in the case of people that I've championed like Zuu, that was really important. I feel like he slightly broke the mold there because, we're talking about a Muslim chef and his two Muslim friends who will only buy meat from halal butchers, because that's really important that we don't, again, have this kind of... Tell me another chef that that you watch on television who says, that's not halal, so we're going to get because we're Muslim and we don't do the pork thing. Yeah. But it's fine, because we will still cook the pork for you, but we are not in it.
Yeah.
Or we're still going to cater to your taste, but that's not for us.
Yeah.
And that's also fine.
Yeah.
How many? It's very difficult, isn't it? So, wow, for young people to be able to see that there is representation on many, many levels with him, with Hyder, with Tubbsy, with a food show that does something that is so different. And then moving on to 12 Dishes with all of these, it was important for us to have Sindhuvi. It was important for us to have Eddie Caddy. It was so important for us to have Will. Will was one of the first people who came back and said,
Will Poulter, yeah.
Will Poulter. We were, because... He came...
I mean, this is, he just done Marvel's, what was it? The...
Adam Warlock.
Yeah, Adam Warlock, right.
Guardians of the Galaxy, the second one. Yeah. Yeah, and what an unbelievable guy. What an unbelievable guy. I can't even... There aren't enough fantastic things that I am able to say about him because there's too much. The most gracious, humble... Just wanted to have a good time.
He's calling you now, actually, isn't he?
Kenny, wow. Listen. I said to him at one point, how are you like this? Because honestly...
It's down to earth. And I mean, he comes across that way. Talk to me about your own growth as a human being, but also as a professional.
Well, some of the people who've invested in my growth are my mentor, obviously, Paul Blake. Unbelievable guy, been mentoring me since I was a researcher. I always encourage people to get mentors based on the experience that I've had. And he isn't the only mentor that I've had over that time. He has been really pivotal. And mentoring has had a real profound impact, I think, on my career, on my confidence at a point when I didn't feel like I had enough. And he saw, okay, this is what I need to do. Through a friend who was working with him on a doc series, and I then worked for him for a little bit on this doc that he was making for Channel 4, and then we stayed in touch from then. He was the person who said to me, I think that I'm talking to a commissioner. I think that that's what you could. And I didn't think I would. That was never in my sights, ever.
Working at Netflix has really given me insight into, the role and importance of intentional development spaces for people, because a lot of the creatives and execs that I work with and have worked with in the past, particularly at Netflix, they've come from freelance backgrounds where they didn't get structured support. They didn't get the kind of seminars and the kind of coaching and the kind of feedback stuff. And all of those sorts of things. They've never had it before. It's difficult because, for example, Netflix is known for having a really deep culture around feedback and how to give feedback well. And I'm not saying everybody at Netflix who's a leader is great at that, but you definitely see the difference.
But that's a priority for Netflix. That feedback and more transparency than you would get anywhere else probably is important. That is important.
And that's a culture shock for people. It's a culture shock. I mean, if you've come from the BBC to, it's a...
Right, can you imagine?
Again, I feel like we've been bringing up the BBC
You say we.
We're coming into the home straight in a little bit, and I've just enjoyed our conversation. Right, I feel like we could be talking for hours on end. For people who are listening and they want to tap into their own sort of creativity and curiosity, and they're listening to you and they think, wow, I'm so interested. What are some advice you would give to people? Maybe they're not trying to get into your kind of career or industry, but when it comes to just people tapping into their own sense of creativity, have you got any advice for people?
I have got some advice. What would be one of the top things? For me, inspiration is really, really important. Being stimulated in some way, has to be stimulated a lot. And it helps, you're not a prisoner in a jail who's only able to get out a couple of books a week. Look at the world that we live in and how much is available to us. So I would say whatever creative field you want to get into, it actually doesn't matter because creativity is everywhere. My taste is very broad. I can sit home and watch 100 videos of architectural digest because I want to understand how people have made their homes so beautiful, or something about plants, or something about, I don't know, Henry Matisse, and then I'm watching an hour and now I understand that, or I think it's really reading. Your imagination is the most limitless thing. That doesn't require money. That doesn't even. It's infinite, isn't it? It's as limited as you will allow it to be. That's why when we were young, books, reading, anything, crafts, art. Gosh, my sister who you're married to, I mean, she was reading Jeffrey Archer books when she was 12.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like, and it informed so much about writing, how you would articulate emotion, all these
just
things.
Something
you
about
just have
being
to,
really interested, right? And being
be
curious,
interested.
right? And
yes.
Yeah.
I think curiosity is really, really key. Who is your favourite artist, then who's their favourite artist? Why is that? Here's a recommendation. There is a book which is more of an exercise, a kind of course, a thing that you can do daily. It's called The Artist's Way. You'll know The Artist's Way. You've probably done it as well, Kenny. Yeah. I mean, look, that's my...
Julia, I forget her surname.
Her surname either.
But yeah, The Artist's Way, that's a classic. I think that experimentation piece is also key, and how people allow themselves to experiment. And there are so many books out there on this, right? That perfection being just the absolute killer when it comes to creativity, because we think, if this isn't going to come out amazing, then I'm not even going to start.
Exactly.
In the games industry, they talk a lot about ugly babies. It's the same at Pixar. When you read a book by Ed Catmull, Creativity Inc., they talk about the ugly baby, which is it's that prototype. It's the start of something which doesn't look great. It's still underdeveloped. It needs to be fed. But the end products, the end result, typically looks nothing like the way it started.
Wow.
And often we can get so discouraged by that beginning that we never sort of press through. As we round up, what would you want people to know? What have you not shared? We talked off air and that before the show, that I really want people to hear Natalie as a creative, as an exec. I don't think you've been on any other podcasts. So I
this
feel,
is an
I feel
exclusive.
pretty,
Listen, I'll turn things down. So I want people to know. I think what I want people to know is that, if you really believe in yourself, you might not have gotten where you want to get to, but you have to back yourself, I think that's really, really important. It wasn't something that I was standing tall doing when I started in this thing, but it's something that I'm doing now and I have been doing for a while. And I think that level of, it's not hubris, it's more, okay, I believe in my ability to lead this team, to protect this team, to collaborate with this team, to execute to the best of our ability, and we will get something great at the end of it. And that you have to be able to back yourself fully to do that. I think that in part what we were just saying about perfectionism, that, we all have that kind of gene if you are a creative, you know what I mean? But I think that there is a stop point. I also think about procrastination because that is something that afflicts a lot of creatives. And, I was always told procrastination is the thief of time and that's the end of it. And so, I think that is really key because there's a lot of, 10 years goes by. Oh man, do you know what? I was so close to writing that book. I was so close to sending that script to blah, blah. Yeah, but okay, why didn't you do it?
Listen, Natalie, thank you so much for taking the time to share your passion, your expertise, your experience, your insight. It's been an absolute joy. And I think we'll just have to do this again sometime.
Why don't we? Series 2, Series 3, let's give it some time. People have had enough. Come on.